Who is Karen Heriot?
Good morning, Joel.
And good morning. This is Joel Hoxley with the Morning Constitution, and I have a special guest with us, Ms. Karen Heriot from the Seminole Soil and Water Conservation District. Karen, introduce yourself to the constitutionalists that are watching today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Joel. I am a public school teacher with 34 years of experience, and I am the mother of three grown kids who I think, are fabulous, as any mother would think of their children. And I'm the chairman of the Seminole County Soil and Water Conservation Board. And we have a lot going on in Seminole County.
Well, that's what I really am glad to have you here today because we really want people to understand those down ballot candidates. I understand that this is an election year for you, and but the main thing is to tell them what soil and water is all about and exciting things that you're doing. I do know that we talked about you saving the county or state like $1.2 billion, or I'm going to guess at that number because you're going to
Yes,
tell
that's
us
right.
about it. But yeah, I'm really excited so that people can understand the importance of this very difficult and very unpaid uh, position that you hold.
Well, our main concern is water quality, and that is not tap water. That's the lakes and streams and natural bodies of water that are on public land, and water quantity. So we're concerned to make sure that we have enough water in the aquifer to meet the needs of our community well into the future. And we also are concerned with soil erosion and making sure the soil stays in place, because our um, our organization was started during the Dust Bowl years of the Great Depression, and it's an organization that is created by an agreement between the state of Florida and the federal government. And we work with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and we have a lot of agriculture related um, doings with them. But there's a huge need for the urban component of soil and water also.
Well, that's a lot to take in, and we appreciate you doing this job. Recently, the legislature changed the requirements to be on the soil and water conservation boards. And whether you agree or disagree as a citizen, um, being somebody that has to be in agriculture and working in agriculture is important. I do agree with the decision, but it makes it more difficult to get people to serve. So I appreciate you doing that. Tell us a little bit about those requirements.
The requirements were changed in 2022 because, as you know, every public office is open to every citizen. But our state legislature decided that to serve in the role of soil and water supervisor, a candidate must be engaged in agriculture. And it was loosely defined. So, according to the state statutes, um, I met the requirement because I would go and feed my son's chickens on the weekends when he was out of town. And now I have citrus trees growing in my backyard. And so I am engaged in agriculture for those two things. Um, in this past legislative session, they wanted to tighten it up even further and say that you had to be employed in agriculture or retired from agriculture after being in employed in agriculture for 10 years. And I think that's a constitutional issue because even if you started working when you were 14, that would mean you could not hold this elected office until you were 24. And even tax collectors and comptrollers and the CFO, there's no employment criteria for serving as an elected official. So I have a problem with that, even though I've tried to meet that requirement. But I still very much disagree with it.
Well, I see exactly what you're saying, but it's such an important role that it's an oversight. I think it's an oversight on our as voters that we even don't pay attention to this enough. This is a huge impact that you guys do. You educate. You take the time to talk about, hey, there's money available to the federal government. There's grants. There's things that we need you to know that you're not going to get that information without this important role that you have. And that's kind of why I'm really excited to have you and to discuss things like, you know, you're the linchpin when a county or a city decides, hey, we're going to build, we're going to approve this project, and you guys can come in there and say, I don't know, guys, this is not a good idea, and you can give them that input. Do they have to take it? That's my question.
No, they do not have to take it. We do not have the authority to tax, nor do we have the authority to regulate. We can only educate and advocate. So our main method of getting things done, for lack of better term, is our relationships with other elected officials. And so we try to be very credible. And when we come in and oppose a particular change in a county ordinance, or we try to talk to county commissioners or city commissioners about testing lake water, because some of our lakes have not been tested since 2009. We can only do that based on a relationship, not on, we have a statutory requirement that you get our approval.
Well, so Supervisor, let me ask you a question related to our county commission here in Seminole County. Is there a good relationship, and who would you say would be your primary person that you say would support your initiatives on the county commission?
Oh, we have a fabulous relationship with our county commission. We have a dedicated member of our board, a supervisor, Gabrielle Milch, who is our liaison to the county commission. And we have the chairman of the county commission at the time was Amy Lockhart. She was very supportive. Jay Zembauer is very supportive. Lee Constantine has a long track record of doing things that benefit the environment, and he and Bob Delary are right up there. And Andrea Her's the newest member, and she's very willing to learn and be educated, and we like working with her too. So we don't have any problem with any of them.
Well, that's really good, because that's a great relationship, and I applaud the fact that they do have that relationship with you. So you went to Tallahassee because our legislature meets for approximately 3 months in an entire year, and they try to get a lot accomplished. But I understand that your board had a problem with some legislation, and that you had to go up there and educate the legislature on this thing. So I want you to take that and bring us through how that process worked and what you accomplished, because I think the numbers spoke for itself when we said it earlier.
Well, for whatever reason, and I'm still not entirely clear about why the legislature wants to keep killing the soil and water boards, um, but they wanted to eliminate the county level elected soil and water supervisors. Those boards would no longer exist. And instead, they would be replaced with an appointed regional board.
Mhm.
And being somebody who's would rather have local and elected rather than regional and appointed, our board decided to oppose this legislation. And we had several reasons, not the least of which is that so the soil and water boards were created in with an agreement with the federal government, and it turns out that the legislature did not understand that. And so once they started looking into this, according to the agreement, they would have to reimburse the state of Florida would have to reimburse the federal government for all the contracts that were interrupted and for all the assets that the legislature was planning to divvy up between counties and these regional boards. And that amounted to $1.2 billion. And so we were the only group that opposed this bill. And I'm kind of proud of the fact that, you know, I think it came to the right result.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing. We should have more. This is a representative government, and as a representative government, it's very important that we have a voice. Democrats always like to talk about democracy. Well, if we're not selecting those individuals to serve on the boards, we allow it to become just another organization that's been picked and chosen off of the donations that are funneled into our political leaders. So applaud you on that. Sometimes I disagree with Republicans, even though I'm a hardcore Republican, but I see your point that you made, and I appreciate you saving us the money, because that's what conservatives are all about. I don't like to take a lot of federal money because it usually ends up we have to pay it back, but this is you stopped us from having to pay something back that it would cost us $1.2 billion. So thank you so much, and thank your compadres on the board. So what is it like to run for an office, pay a qualifying fee for a job that absolutely doesn't pay a dime? How does that work?
We are the best value in government. We do not collect any salary, and we do not have any taxpayer funding of our board. And so everything we do is of benefit to the citizens of Seminole County, and we it doesn't cost the taxpayers a nickel. So um, it's not the qualifying fee. The qualifying fee was established in 1937, and it's only $25. And but the expense is in conducting the campaign.
Right.
And so we conduct the campaign, and but part of the campaign is also part of the education process. So it's worth it, I think. We're the champions of low budget campaigning. We move signs around a lot. We don't necessarily we can't afford to send out mailers or anything like that. And but we talk to a lot of people that we think are the movers and the shakers and the people in the community who influence others to vote in particular directions. And we do a lot of our education as we campaign.
Well, that's phenomenal. So I know what you said. You try to keep it low, but how do we do this? If we wanted to be involved in the Karen Heriot for Seminole Soil and Water Conservation District Group 5, how would we get those donations to you? What are those maximum donations that we can give? And how do we follow you and get our education about you?
Well, our first the first thing is, um, my email address is just Karen Heriot, KarenHeriot, at gmail.com. And so that's a good way to contact me. I put my phone number out in public. It's both the email address and the phone number are listed on the Supervisor of Elections website, and I will have a web page shortly. The first time I ran for office, I had 80,000 hits on the website, and I won with 97,000 votes. And I think that's important. And the maximum contribution is $1,000. But the only contribution I've ever had was one little check for $100. So I
Well,
would.
hopefully our audience will say, "Look, this is important enough to write those checks." With Karen Harriet, she's on Facebook. She's got social. She is very active in our community, and we appreciate it. We appreciate your time. What do you want to talk to? Is there anything you wish want to share with the Seminole County voter or those people that are interested in our quality of soil and water?
One of the things that has happened because of the Inflation Reduction Act is that the Natural Resource Conservation Service has received a huge increase in funding. My little brain can has a hard time wrapping around how we can reduce inflation by having lots of extra spending. But if we don't spend it in Florida, it's just going to be moved to another state. So it won't go back to decreasing the debt or anything like that. But we have, um, this year, it will be $68 million just for the state of Florida to do conservation projects with agricultural producers. And so we're looking for small agricultural producers, church gardens, community gardens, school gardens, anything, it can be a business, it can be an individual, or it can be a charity that would like to do a conservation project. It's a cost sharing arrangement where the the receiver of the grant puts up the money first, and then the federal government reimburses a percentage, usually 75% or more. And so we are very interested in finding these small agricultural producers because we want even people in urban areas to be able to take advantage of this conservation money that's coming into our state. Well, I have um, access to and work with a very skilled conservationist. His degree is in agriculture, and this is um, his full time job is to talk to people and say, you know, the school or the church or the community wants to have, you know, this is our vision, this is our idea, and he will come and do a site visit. We have a soil scientist that works in the NRCS office. He will help you lay out your project. He will talk to you about, you know, what the most economical way to do this is. And our conservationists, as they are working on protecting our soil and our water, they're also helping the agriculture producer be more efficient and more profitable. And so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, homeowners association. If a homeowners association comes to you and says, "Hey, we want to put in a garden for our community," that's something that we're talking about here, right?
Sure.
Okay. And not a government agency, so not the city of Castleberry can't say, "Hey, we want to put in some community gardens." That's not where this money is going to go to, right?
Well, we are working with, at least we're at the talking stage with the city of Sanford and the city of Altamont, because they have a separate charity that operates their community garden.
Okay.
And so we can work with those charities to, in both cases, it's siting the garden on a fairly large piece of land, and then talking about, you know, the shape, how, the layout, and then kind of the future development of the garden.
Nice. So I want to grow avocados in my backyard. I reach out to you. That's probably not going to be good.
Um, no, you're probably your best bet is the county extension office, because because that's the the they'll give you advice on your avocado trees, or your radishes or whatever you're growing. we we try to work with the people who are, you know I have to be really careful because there's a really thick manual that
I'm sure there is. I don't
you have
want
to
you to get
say
in
the wrong
trouble.
thing.
I
But
just make like my audience knows I like to make jokes. So,
okay,
you can shut me down anytime you want to, but the avocado tree was a joke. So, no, listen, I love the fact that you guys listen. If you're out there and you have questions about this federal money, get with the Soil and Water Conservation District, get with your leadership. They've got great programs that you won't know anything about until you talk to somebody like, uh, Supervisor Heriot. It's important that we learn these things because they meet. Now, let's talk about meetings. They meet on a regular basis. So if you want to know what's going on, those empty rooms that they have to do all this conversation in, I want you to fill them with questions. When do you meet? How often do you meet? And how do we get involved?
well, we meet twice a month. We meet on the third and the fourth Wednesday at the extension office auditorium. So if you know where the sheriff's office is in Seminole County, right next door is the museum, and behind the museum is the county extension office. We meet, it's 220 County Home Road, and we meet the third and the fourth Wednesday. The fourth Wednesday is the business meeting. The third Wednesday is a work session. And to become involved, there are lots of different projects that you can work on if you want to become involved as sort of, on an ongoing basis instead of just, this project or some other project. Um, we're happy to appoint you as a associate supervisor, and that way you're going to be kind of an extension of our board. And
And
so
your,
we'd love to have you come join us.
yeah, and your board is how many people?
5.
Okay, so there's 5 people on this board. They're elected officials. You must be in the field of agriculture, or you must have been in agriculture, retired. All
No,
the rules are out.
just
That's how
engaged in agriculture.
engaged in agriculture. You need to be engaged in agriculture to even think about this job, unless they overthrow that later on down the road, because it does limit the people that can be involved. Um, Look, I'm not trying to recruit anybody to run for this job. I think it's an important job, but I'm trying to say Karen's been doing a great job. She's been on that board for how long now?
I'm in the middle of my 6th year. And and but one of the things I wanted to say, Joel, is that our purpose for existing also has to do with public lands and trails and green spaces. And so we're not, our purpose goes beyond agriculture, which is one of the reasons that I think that having an agriculture requirement is not necessary, because we should have people from all walks of life
Mhm.
serve as elected officials.
Well, I tell you, city commissioner is something that I find is a very interesting job because the majority of the people that are our county commissioners had no idea anything about land use. And when you get there and you find out, oh my goodness, I have to condemn homes, I have to zone areas for housing and all this other stuff, and they even send you a special class because you've never done it in your life. The things that we don't know. Uh, it's why I want the show to be so successful, is because you don't know what you don't know, right? And
That
I think the problem is there's so much out there. You've educated me on so much over the years, and that's why I'm so glad to have you here. And I hope that the people out there, they share this information, they share this video. I love it. The dog is here and everything. That's perfect. Perfect.
somebody just
See,
rang.
everybody gets heard on this show. Okay, I tell you, everybody gets heard on this show. I have a cat over here that just perked up and said, "I love it. There's a dog around."
He's a sweet little puppy, but he barks when the doorbell rings.
Well, tell the person at the door we're done. So, listen, thank you very much, Karen, for being with me. If you would be on our show in the future, I'd appreciate it.
I
Thank you
love
very
it.
much.
Thanks, Joel.